Hi everyone, this is going to be a off-the-cuff video here. We're going to be talking about the experimental changes in 1.8. This is a talky episode, so there's not even going to be anything on the screen. So you don't even have to watch it, you just listen to it. So I've literally just watched, what's his name, Cubfan's video on the subject of the 1.8 changes. But for anyone that don't know, 1.8 changes basically change it so that mobs only spawn at light level 0 rather than less than 7. And for proper clarity, I am 100% for this change, so I'm going to explain further how it's good, basically. So first things first, I'm going to touch on the first few parts of Cubfan's video, basically the whole creativity side of things. And I agree wholeheartedly with it. The amount of lighting you need to put down to make anything safe, bearing in mind that once you are set up in your area, you're going to have, like for instance, if you're living on an island, you're going to have that entire island covered in torches the first day you're at the island. So that makes mobs null and void in the first place. So it's like the whole difficulty side of thing is irrelevant in the first place. You always... So let's start with that. Let me give you an example with Modded. In Modded, there's extra blocks, I think, has something called... Oh, is it called an interdiction torch or something like that? It's something called that, which basically prevents mobs spawning within a specific radius. I think it's 60 blocks, something like that. And people always make that as soon as they possibly can, because it's just handy. No one wants to be inundated with mobs in their own base. That's the point of making your base. Like, I'm currently watching Gemini Tay's hardcore Minecraft series, and she put a wall around her village and she lit it up, and her village would look so much nicer. Not like it doesn't look nice in the first place. Don't get me wrong. It was just so much nicer if she replaced all of those torches with a lot less lamps, which you could do in 1.18, sorry. It's just much better. Much better at all. I'm also going to touch on a little bit of the cons that he talked about, like the whole make dungeons easier. To be honest with you, dungeons need a revamp. They are so archaic now. They were brought in like when mobs were far harder, when armor meant less. I think you could get really powerful now. I know at one point you could be like practically indestructible, and they have to nerf that a bit. But they brought it in when the game was just much harder, and something needs to be done with dungeons, because at the minute they are terrible. Because all they are is just a square block with a monster spawner in, and all they need to do really is just redesign them a little bit. Maybe I had more spawners. Maybe just make them actual dungeons, like 100 by 100 size or something like that. That's not the point of the video, but it's all about dungeons were easy in the first place. They're irrelevant. In all honesty, you put one torch in the first place and they are gone, and you exploit them for their... Oh, but sorry, I'm also I'm playing Eve, so sorry, I'll turn that off. Actually, no, you got a bit of audio in the background. And if they want to make dungeons relevant, then they need a proper redesign. That's pretty much it. So regarding the whole, you'll see less mobs. Cubfan did a little test where he ran through a path that he had made that had just had one torch there. And he interacted with, I would say, about 5 mobs. Interacted being wasn't necessarily attacked by, but may have got his attention. And that's as many as you want, really. You go out specifically to deal with mobs, and if you want to do that, then you'll go away from your away from your what do you call it? Away from your base to do that. Not only that, but there are certain types of lighting blocks that are entirely useless. Specifically the blue fire lanterns. I don't know what they're called. Soul lanterns, I think they're called. The glow lichen, they're useless. Candles under four candles that I think are useless because they don't stop mob spawning, and I think sea pickles also. There's also a set amount of light per pickle that gives you. I'm here for your pickle. So it just stops them from being entirely used. And I suppose redstone torches as well. You could argue you could use redstone torches in that, but I don't think many people use redstone torches as mood lighting anymore. So this just goes back to the whole creativity kind of thing. Without the threat of monsters, of mobs, spawning in places where you don't necessarily want light, and it just adds in just far more ways that you would want to, that you could indeed make builds. I actually had another point that I wanted to make, and then I've totally forgotten it, and it's very annoying. And then it comes to the whole, it's gonna be easier to just not see mobs, or indeed get mobs at all. Mobs really need a redesign in the first place. I posted on Cubfan's video about it and basically said there should be, you've got zero lighting, and then further away from zero lighting, you should have negative lighting, which just increases the spawning rate. Maybe increases the spawning rates. Maybe gives mobs special abilities or gives them more health. Just obviously, you get mobs that have armors and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe give them specific other abilities. Like maybe some of them are faster. Hell, you already give mobs. You already give spiders potion abilities, don't you? Maybe give other mobs potion abilities based on the negative light level and the current local difficulty. There's just so many different minor systems you can add to mobs and other things that will just make not harder, the game not harder, just more complex without making the gameplay more complex. If you know what I mean, you've made mechanics of mob spawning just better by that. Not to mention that this whole you need to be 7 or less for mobs to spawn. It just seems really arbitrary, doesn't it? For you giving you a specific number rather. Okay, you've got 16 down to 0 and all that stuff, but why 7? Why not 0 in the first place? I don't know. It didn't really make sense to me, to be honest with you. So, yeah, that's fine like that, I guess. And the whole thing really, I wish that light worked differently anyway, which kind of is kind of negated by the fact that this change, because the way I wanted light to work was that there was a specific amount of distance a light would always project 16 or the maximum amount of lighting. Then it will cut off. That way you could have lighting, and it always did it like the ground, basically. Like the ground would always be 16 to 15 to 14, etc. like that. But if you put like a torch above, then it would be 16 up until it hit a block, and then it would start going down, which I think would be it would be a bit more complex, and I think it would be a little bit more taxing on the game, really. But all in all, this new, I really hope they keep it, because having it's just creativity, like the whole, like at some point I was going to get to that things that we weren't going to add into Minecraft kind of thing, and the whole restriction of creativity. this just adds more creativity. Like the whole, they did say like, oh, we're not going to add vertical slabs because that negates creativity, which is bullshit, to be honest with you. But well, okay, well, that's not really talking about that. But all in all, new changes, 10 out of 10. Need to keep. If they don't keep, I'm going to riot. So thank you, everyone.